Hello everyone, welcome to this video about publication in international journals. Many students and colleagues they suggested that I should deliver this one first because this is very important, mainly for master students or PhD students who want to publish their results, also to get your job. I made it very simple, so that's why you will see that there are mainly text. I have avoided using photos, images, or tables. Also, you can see, note down my email addresses and my number. You can WhatsApp these suggestions later on. Okay, let's start with this one. First, little bit introduction about myself. I'm professor of weed science at the University of Queensland. And if you know, in Australia, I'm based here, and this one I'm on the eastern side. So that's around 80 kilometers from Brisbane. Also, you can see my profile where you see my research interest. I'm mainly interested in agronomy and focuses on weed science. So therefore, this presentation will be biased towards weed science, but principles are same for all disciplines. Currently, I'm editor-in-chief of this new journal we have launched. This one I will talk about this one in the end. Also, I am an associate editor of Weed Science, which is published by Weed Science Society of America. Previously, I was editor-in-chief of Crop Protection, published by Elsewhere. Then specialty chief editor, Frontiers in Agronomy, and I recently resigned from there. Also associate editor of Journal of Agricultural Sciences, that's Cambridge Press. Also Plant Production Science from Japan. I have underlined these two journals because this presentation is mainly from my work with them. So we also presented this one when I was the editor-in-chief of Crop Protection as well as specialty chief editor. And many people will recognize this presentation, especially from India, that I already presented in several universities. So let's start. First of all, you need to understand why to publish, because that's also, once you know why you need to publish, then you will have a different motivation. So publish or perish, you have heard that one. It's very important. I don't know whether that's should be there, that point, but it is truth. Publish or perish. So it's very essential, important for your career development and also stability. You need to publish because to gain recognition, whatever. So establish your expertise in your area. For example, I am in weed science. So people should know from my publication that I'm a weed scientist. Establish your expertise and also within that weed science, what kind of expertise, for example, on weed biology or artificial intelligence. Also establish your impact in your field. So it's not only just about publishing data. Your impact will come through publication. And also important to note, publication, I'm not really just thinking about journals, publication, because some people, they are extension specialists. For them, publication in journals is not important, but publication in farmers magazines, conferences, these are very important. So I'm talking here about a publication in general. So it increase your visibility. If you have published in some journals or in magazines, uh, that publication will increase your visibility, to enhance awareness and reach of your research. People will know that yes, those people are working in that particular area. Peer-reviewed validation, which is very important for me, because when we submit our paper to a journal, it will be reviewed by at least an editor and at least two reviewers. So it means if they validate, you get confidence. So confirm findings with expert validation for confidence. So that's very important. And I always suggest PhD students that they should publish first and then submit their thesis. So when those thesis examiners, they see that they have already published these results, there will be little questions on your findings. Okay. Advanced research, that's very important because we use findings as a foundation for further innovation. And that's why I was disappointed when I came here. People, they had done some work, but they were never published. And for us, it was a gap. How do we know what was already done so that we don't really waste our efforts, time, money, the same thing, which was done 10 years. So nowadays, funding opportunities are very limited. You have to compete, struggle. So you don't want to do the same thing what people did already 10 years back. So that advance your research, use findings as a foundation for further innovation. Enhance collaboration, and I suggest mainly I'm talking about interdisciplinary research, because what happens, for example, people, they are engineer or working on drones. They want to do something on weeds or crops. They may not have experience on weeds, but we are weed scientists. We don't know about drones. So that's how, if they know that we are doing work on weed biology or their management, they will contact us. And if we want to initiate something related to remote sensing, we will, through their findings, we will actually contact them. So that's why your publication, they will find only through your publication, because not everyone is on social media or promoting themselves nowadays. So enhance interdisciplinary approach. Influence policy, this is not really, again, not may not be true for all journals, because policy makers may not read, but there are other magazines also. Also, there are other avenues where you can influence policy and practice, but that's through publication, and that's informed decision making. Secure funding, I work on in the applied area, and their publication is not that important. No one sees that what I initiated, what we did already. But in some areas, especially I'm talking about blue sky research, where people are talking about some fundamental research, there they see funding bodies, they want to see what you have done already. They want to see evidence for the past impact. So that's very important for funding in some areas, because they don't really want to give funding to someone who has not really done and they are proposing something new. Now, next one is you need to understand this publishing cycle, and it's very important for some of our students who are not patient. They think that within 1 or 2 months paper will be published. Okay, so you need to understand. First of all, this one, quality and scope. You submit a paper to a journal. The journal people, they check its quality, also see whether your paper is within the scope of the journal. Now, if it is out of scope or quality is sub quality, it's straight away rejected. Okay. If it's passed from there, okay, then it goes to editor or associate editor. They also see. And if they see that, oh, scientific quality is not really that high, or it's poor, or it's routine, research, they may reject straightforward. Okay, but if they see that yes, it's high quality, high scientific quality, it goes to reviewer. Okay, that's their rigorous review done by at least two, but it some editors, they invite up to 5, 6, 7 also, and we have experienced that one. Okay, after review, depending on their reviews, it can be rejected straight away. Both reviewers, for example, they reject, or if they accept, or they say major revision, you revise and you submit, they accept, and it's produced. Okay, after that, publication and promotion of that one. So you need to understand this whole cycle. Depending on publisher, and also depending on journals, it can be really very long. Some conventional journals take 6 months or even up to 9 months for the final one. You don't need to have volume and page numbers for your paper if it is accepted. Once they accept, I think that's enough. You can use that one in your CV, and that's enough to get a job or applying for a postdoc position. Now, article structure. If you are already in PhD, if you have read some papers, you already know this one. But for master student, it's new. But you need to understand what is article structure. Just see these. I think most journals have this. These title. These sections. I have divided that in four: title, abstract, and keywords. And these three make sure that your article is easily found, because people always search with your title or keywords, indexed, and reaches the right audience. Then I have divided that in introduction and methods that explain the context, what was the purpose of your study, and through methodology, what approaches you used. Then results, discussion, and conclusion. Some journals, they combine results and discussion, and I prefer personally that one, so that you don't really repeat your results again. And conclusion, these clearly present your findings. And some journals, they don't have a separate section on conclusion. You have to include within the results and discussion in the end. So clearly present your findings, analyze and interpret the significance of your research, summarize the main message and implication. And last one is, people think that this is not really that important, but acknowledging the work is very important about people. It's references. Not all journals use supporting material, but that's also important, and one of this structure. And I'm talking about research article here, not a review article. So review articles will have different sections. Let's go one by one, cover these ones. Writing process. Okay, before we go to this slide, I want you to think about for a few seconds how you choose which section need to be covered first. Just think about that one out of those all sections. And I say that many people, and even including me, when I started writing first papers, initial papers, I was writing worried mostly about introduction or abstract. But let's see how it should be written. First of all, when you have got research, you take data, you analyze and figure out whether you should really present that as a figure or as a table. All right. And then methods. And these two things people can, I think that can be interchanged. Methods, like during my PhD, I knew that I was doing something, and I used to write methods at the same time, so that I knew what equipment I used, and how I planted my trial. So all those things. So these two things. So methods is written first. Now, many people, they write introduction, but I don't think that that's a good idea, because first you write results. Once you have got your data, you write your methods, then you write your results, because your introduction is based on your results. So it's not really always you will expect results in a desired way. Results can be anything, because this is research. So that's why, based on your results, you plan your introduction. And then, because you have introduction, discussion is related to that one, and we'll discuss that later on. Discussion, then you write after introduction, and conclusion later on. Once you have got all that information, then you actually write a title. And this is abstract. It should be written in the end. And that's why I really feel sometimes uncomfortable when people ask me to submit an abstract, especially if it is related to your research, not about a review. For conferences, I can understand, because you don't need to really give your final abstract. You can give only general information, and then when you present during conference, you can actually elaborate. But for journals, I feel very uncomfortable when they ask you first abstract and then they decide. I would write my abstract after writing my introduction, discussion, and results. And then in the end, you finalize keywords. I hope now this from this arrow, you can see that how we should really write. That is the right method. Okay. Now let's discuss one by one. Uh, Manuscript title, it should grab your attention of your reader actually immediately. So that's why the title is very important. Be concise, minimal words. Don't really write. When I see some papers, they have got 4 lines of title. It's really difficult to understand. So you need to use minimal words to convey your ideas. It's the spelling is incorrect. It's ideas. Okay. Clear descriptions. Ensure content is well described. So you have to describe whatever you did, that study. So ensure that it's well described. It should be informative and brief, as I mentioned. Deliver essential information briefly, okay, not really in an expanded way. Highlight key issues. Maybe if many people they do 3 4 sub trials within one large trial, one large study. So focus on the main topic what you want to present, and so that it can grab attention of your readers. Use simple language, avoid jargons and acronyms. And these acronyms, I get really sometimes disappointed as an editor when I see some acronyms which are used in one region or in one country, and authors think that it's used everywhere worldwide. So avoid jargons and use acronyms. For example, DSR, direct seeded rice, dry seeded rice. It's known only in South Asia. Outside, it's not really. And avoid those acronyms in your title definitely. Accurate title, as I mentioned earlier, also its content well described. So in inaccurate title, for example, if your study is about something X and you are not really including that in your title, and people who were looking for that X study, they may not really find your title because you used incorrectly. So that's very important. Now let's see abstract. Abstract second, and this one is not in the order. This one how they appear in the paper, not in the order you should write. Abstract, what are the important points you need to consider? First of all, yeah, single paragraph. Most journals nowadays, some journals they want you in different sections, but whatever journal, you should summarize these 4 you should include these 4 sections within that a single paragraph. And that's very important. If you include these 4, you can easily attract attention of your readers. First of all, problem, like what is the problem? If I say example, annual ryegrass is the most important, most problematic weed in Australian cropping systems. Okay, and then you can expand a little bit, 1 or 2 sentence maximum. Then methods, very briefly, you write there. For example, a 2-year study was conducted to evaluate XYZ. Okay, results. Yeah, here we don't really write any discussion. Results important, and as I mentioned, you may have 4 tables in your results inside, but in abstract you bring only important results. Okay, so don't really try to include everything, just most important one. And especially when we have applied research, we always bring only 1 or 2 important those data. Last one, I think that's very important. What is your conclusions? And sometimes we call it implications of your research. And this is very important. All of those ones, not really summary of these 3, but what's the implication of your results? Okay, how it will add value. So that's one. If you see some recent papers in good journals, you see the last 1 or 2 sentences of that abstract, and you will find what I mean. Most journals they want around 250 to 300 words. So you have to see that how will you bring all these 4 sections within that word limit. Some journals, they give you up to 500 words where it's easy to include. But when it's only about 250 words, you need to really choose your words, your sentences very carefully. Engaging, it should be engaging, make it interesting and easy to understand. Don't really try to give very problematic or very difficult to understand language. So easy to understand, make it interesting. Accurate, be concise and specific. Don't just try to copy sentences from results and then paste here. Many people they do. I did in at my initial stage, but that's not really correct. It should be influential. Means clear abstract always they attract readers. So your abstract should be influential. And this is very important. I see some people they submit their abstract to my journals and they are very quantitative. They are qualitative. Qualitative means only no data at all in that one, and that make that dull. So it's very important you try to give some kind of data or some values in there just to show importance of your research. If it is all qualitative, no data at all, it's really difficult. The same thing, when we write long introductions, you need to break them, those paragraphs. The same thing here. You need to give something, some values, so that, and also it will be good for readers. And abstract, because some journals they are paid, so not really all readers have access to the full paper, so they only see your title and abstract. So that's why it's very important. It's an online ad for your article. So abstract is very important for the visibility. Okay, and careful writing, as I mentioned, you write that in the end when you have a full story of your research. So write in the end. Okay, careful writing. Keywords not really that important, but some people make mistakes. So I think it's very important to understand the importance of keywords. These are actually labels for manuscript. So keywords actually identify your work. Also, when a journal is indexed, so it's used their abstract. So it helps in abstracting services. Be specific with your keywords. Choose precise terms. Don't really very long, phrases. That one. Also, as I mentioned, use only established abbreviations. For example, DNA. Don't really try to bring new abbreviations in your keywords. Also, most important, because all journals have different guidelines, so it's very important that you follow journals keyword guidelines. Also, this one is important. I wanted to emphasize that your keyword should be different than words appeared in your title. Okay, if some words already appeared in your title, don't include them in keywords, because those indexing services they use both title as well as keywords. So don't really, you can bring something from abstract, but don't bring uh, words from your title. So they should be different. Okay, introduction. Now, if you see this diagram here, it's inverted triangle, and what it means, you start very broadly. So, for example, if you are talking about a problem in rice crop, so you start with the importance of rice crop, how it is important, and it's acreage, all those things, and then in the end you narrow it down, and in the end you actually finish with your objectives or hypothesis of your study. So start broadly and then narrow down. So just note down this one, and it is opposite to discussion. We will cover that later on. So start broadly and then narrow down. In this one, we briefly introduce the topic. That's in the introduction. That's one way. Two, problem. That's very important. In your introduction section, you need to clearly address the issues. What is your research question? What are your research questions? And what are the issues addressed here in your research? That's why I mentioned that your introduction should be written after writing your results, because there you actually issue you actually raise your research questions. Also, your introduction should identify what are the solutions. You just give them. Don't give your results, but you give that, okay, these are possible solutions, but that type of research is not done, etc. And also their limitations also. Maybe what is already available and their limitation. And in the end, objectives, define your paper's objectives. In the end, that will come. But also important, as I mentioned, all journals have different requirements. So should fit in the journal, align with your journal scope, and unique introduction for every paper. For example, if a lab is studying, weed ecology, and they have 10 weed species, and they may have 10 papers on different weed species. So for each paper, you should have a new introduction. Don't try to copy. Yes, some sections, some components will be repeated, but you try to have new introduction for each article. And I always like very brief, concise articles, not really very long. In some journals, you see very long articles, not really. Don't bury your readers in detail. Nowadays, readers don't really want to, everywhere, don't have much time. They don't want to read all detail, and especially for students, I think don't bury them in detail. So very concisely, point to point. Yes, some journals they say that, oh, you have to write very long introduction, yeah, up to their requirement, but I can't remember exactly, but your introduction should not be like maybe if there are only 10 pages whole 10 pages of 10 pages in your paper, you should not write more than 2 pages definitely. All right. Materials and methods, and some journals they call it only methods, but it's like material method. It's very important because it describes your study, outline how research was conducted. And I've seen many papers, they have not really given or not very transparent. They don't give exact methodology, and that's, to me, I don't really want to read those papers if you can't really follow. So it's a detailed roadmap. It's provide enough detail if someone wants to do the same type of research. Some student, they should be able to understand from your methodology how you did. Also, in this one, you organize by experiments and give subheadings. Don't really give 3 pages of methodology, but no subheadings. And again, it makes your paper dull. So you use subheadings for each experiment. Also explain rationale. You may have already covered that a little bit in the introduction section why you did, but here also, if you have sub experiments and in each experiment you had several treatments. For example, effect of temperature on germination. If you had 4 or 5 temperatures, you give the justification why you chose here. When you explain methodology for that experiment. For example, these treatments or these temperature treatments were selected to represent the temperatures in this region. Okay, so that's how, very short, 1 or 2 sentences, so that people know already. Also, match results order. Very important. Don't really write, in methodology, you have got your order differently. For example, you give first weed dot density, then weed dry matter, and in the end yield. And in results, you explain first yield, then dry matter. So both of them, they should align. Use visuals. For example, if some methodology or is very complicated, try to simplify that using some diagrams or flow charts or tables. If some people they give, for example, if you have several herbicides, their application dates are different, their doses are different, so don't give them in text, give that in a table. Okay, or sometimes operation dates. Also, if someone has already done that trial and they have explained all their methodology, you don't need to repeat. And if it was their methodology, don't repeat the same one. Okay, so you can cite that previously published procedure. You just cite that it was already, or you say that you followed the method used by that one. Yes, if you modify something, you just explain there. It's very important to specify what materials you used and statistical methods used. For example, I use GenStat. You modify there. Also, we use a sigma plot. We mentioned that in the end. Also, statistical analysis, it's very important, and that's what I see that people from mainly from developing countries, they don't really follow, and I'm talking mainly in our OVIDS area. They don't follow. For example, if you did trials over 2 seasons, and you present separately, you need to give why you are presenting them separately or why you combined, how the analysis was done. So there are some, and some journals, they reject your papers based on only analysis. So that's very important, whether transformation was needed or not, all those things, and you need to give reasons. So it's very important section. Now come results. As I mentioned, sometimes we have, especially like, our master's student or PhD student, they take data at every 30 days or 30, 60, 90 years. But in a paper, you don't really give all of that data. So here in a paper, and that's different. Thesis is different because in a thesis, you actually, in your study, you are learning new things. So you present everything, whatever you did. Even you did some trials where you learned, or you clarified some methodology, fine-tuned. You should give that in your thesis so that examiners know that yes, you had a process how you learned. Okay, you are doing master's or a doctor's degree. But in a paper, you present essential data only. Avoid data splitting. Yes, at initial stages, people try to have multiple papers, but don't really do that. Will actually reduce quality of your papers. So avoid data splitting for multiple papers. I suggest from start you should focus on quality rather than quantity. Use subheadings, as I mentioned earlier in the methodology section, to keep results of the same type together. Okay, subheadings. Arrange data again in a clear and logical sequence so that it should really read like a story. Okay. Highlight main findings, but also unexpected, where you think that, oh, most 90% papers found something else and you had an unexpected finding. I feel in research, anything is possible, but you should have, if you did that one honestly, if you followed your research, you can explain all those results, why unexpected findings. So you need to give some, when you describe those results in the discussion section, you need to give possible, speculation, possible reasons why you had unexpected findings. And it's already, and that's why I always prefer to have trials over 2 seasons. In 1 season, anything can happen, and we may not have good explanation. If you get both, if you get, your consistent results in both seasons, then yes, definitely you can explain them. Also provide statistical analysis. I feel in my field, I am not really particular. I am not interested in that one, but it's because we are in the applied research. And when we say statistical analysis, what I mean, some journals or some reviewers, they ask you to put like p-value, whether it was, less than 0.001, 0.01, or 0.05. In my field, because we are in agriculture, so it's not really that critical, but in health science or some like in microbiology, that's very important, whether your results differed or similar at the level at 1% or 0.1% or 5%. We have usually 5%, and in our case, I prefer people should not use it was statistically greater. I think when you say it was greater than that, you should mean that it was statistically greater than that. So don't really avoid using statistical. Yes, some reviewers may ask you, you have to do, but not many. I think nowadays 90% reviewers and editors won't really like that one. And I'm talking about especially applied research. Also in results, you include figures, tables, and images. Some people may not have clear understanding. They actually give both figures and tables, maybe in a different format. Don't repeat. Only give uh, in one format. Also see it should not be crowded. Even if you are presenting table and just try to split them. Figures also try to simplify. Don't give like if you have got bar graphs and there are 20 bars, that's very crowded and I don't really understand. So include those simplified ones. Discussion. I i think if you remember this one, this that was inverted triangle in the introduction section. Here in discussion it's a triangle, so it's opposite. If you see, we start most important section for me at least, It is the most important because this one actually gives me, like, if you got some kind of results, you explain here why you got, who did similar studies, whether your results were different from them, all those important. So it's very important. Also, this is the section where I try to have reasoning justification of your results. So start with the, clearly state this one discussion. What were the issues addressed? And that's why I mentioned earlier that it should be related to your introduction. In introduction, you actually addressed issues, main problem, and here you highlight key findings. Don't repeat results, highlight key findings. Okay. Don't give again exactly those values, percent, 99% greater. Don't repeat this one. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to have combined results and discussion because you avoid that repeating within that section. And if you see Weed Science Journal, Weed Technology journals from the US, they have that combined ones. And if you see there, we are not really repeating. So that's good. Start by addressing your objectives. Again, as I mentioned from here, so whatever your objective, you start with that one, and then you discuss broadly. When you go in the end, it's a broad, its meaning. Again, don't repeat results, build on your results. And here you relate your results to literature. For example, similar results were reported by XYZ. One thing, and still coming, I think I've been presenting this one for more than 10 years, this type of presentation, and still those discussion from developing countries is coming, like, similar results were reported by Chauhan et al. That's it. That's not discussion. You need to actually expand how your results are different or similar. Don't really just stop there. And that's why many papers are rejected, because you miss that discussion. You need to relate. Also, if there are conflicting studies, you mention, you go in their detail, try to find why your results are different from them. And I have actually presented several these reasons just to strengthen my paper, that okay, why it is opposite, or oh, my results are different than them. Also give reasons or speculations. Not always give like whatever you think. They should be supported by some kind of references. So give reasons. Also relate to previous studies. Identify and discuss limitations. Okay, so you need to also identify what were the limitations in your study and may suggest solutions, and also that what is next, what should be done. And this section sometimes may lead to your next paper if you have got multiple chapters. Also discussion, explain relevance and potential applications. Whatever you found, what is the application of those results. So that's why discussion is very important. You should write after the introduction, then you should write discussion, so that these both are related, and you can relate them if you write them together. Conclusions, make sure, first of all, it's very different than your abstract and then summary. So in abstract, we usually bring results. Also, we have methods, little bit about problem, and then in the end, concluding statement. This one, we don't really include methodology. Also, we don't include results as it is. So, okay. So conclusion, it helps reviewers and readers assess your work and its impact, because this is the last section where you emphasize the impact of your results. Okay. Some little bit overlapping with the discussion, because in your discussion you again highlight impact, but this one is the main impact you need to highlight in the last section. Also, conclusion actually justify, highlight uses, again that application of your work. That's very important here to highlight. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, it's different from abstract. Include how your work advances knowledge here. Don't really include just results. We already covered this one. Focus on the significance rather than listing again results. Also, always I have assignments for my students here, and I always ask them to have a conclusion section, and don't afraid to suggest possible experiments, possible research, and don't afraid if it is wrong. Also, the reviewers may suggest that, oh, take this out, but yeah, you should really think in that way. So that's what your future direction should come from the conclusion section. So suggest future experiments, what should be done, and also you may mention somewhere, where I mentioned that you have multiple chapters in your thesis, or if you have multiple experiments and you want to build on one paper to another one, there you can mention that, okay, this particular study was done on XYZ and there is a need to do future studies on that one, and this is already ongoing, so you can mention that one so that reviewers know that that type of research is already going on. Okay, I hope these all sections were very clear. References, it's why it is important, because references, you actually bring previously published paper, and here we actually give credit to those people who did that work before you. So it's very important to cite correct references, and on this problem, always try to cite foundational papers or the papers or authors who gave that idea first time. Now, for example, if someone did a work, initial one in 2002, and my team actually published a review in 2024. And if you write a paper and you cite my review from 2024 and not citing the foundational paper, it's not really good, it's not correct. We should give credit to those people. So you should avoid citing original references, original studies from reviews. Okay, you should cite the original studies. Also avoid excessive citations. As I mentioned, yes, a research article is different than a review. In review article, you will have several citations, excessive ones, but not in your research papers. I think they want only, in most journals, they want only 20, 30, but it also depends on the length. I can't remember exactly, but 3 to 5% of your total length. Try to have that one. If you have got 20 papers, so 20 pages in a paper, so maybe try to have 1 to 2. So it's not really, it's around 5 to 10%. Okay, try to have that one, not really more than that. Ensure thorough understanding of cited material, and that's what related to the first point, where you just cite from a review and you don't really go. I suggest you should really, if you are citing any paper, you should go to that original paper and try to understand what they did. And I have seen like one review article or even one later published article cited a previous article and gave wrong value. In the previous article, for example, it was 40%, and this one by mistake they gave 45. All future papers they cited 45%, which is not really correct. So in short, you have thorough understanding of cited material. Minimize self-citations. It's very important to understand some papers you can't avoid. For example, recently we had a paper on a weed where 90% work was done by my lab. So we cited all those papers, and the journal questioned that one, but we gave justification that there are no other studies on that particular weed, and without citing those papers, we can't really have a complete story of this new paper. So they accepted that one. So you should have some reasons there. Also avoid citing too many from the same region or institute. If you are, for example, in any one country, try to avoid all articles from there. Otherwise, sometimes you see they reject your paper and they say that it's for local journals, and that's why you should avoid that one. Follow the guide for authors, because all journals have got different guidelines. Last section, acknowledgement and supplementary material. Acknowledgements means you need to acknowledge your advisors. When I say advisors, they are not really your supervisors, or should not acknowledge your co-authors. If they are already your co-authors, you should not. Only your advisors. Some people maybe advised you about statistical analysis or something else. Maybe colleagues who helped, but they are not on the paper. And for students, sometimes your friends help you, especially if you are in these developed countries. For example, in the US or Australia, you don't really get labor or a technician, you have to do yourself. So in that case, you take help from your friends. So you need to acknowledge those ones. Financial supporters, for example, your funding body, also your scholarship, that university or whoever funder there, you should acknowledge them. Also, if someone read your this manuscript, helped you to improve, for example, language or some sentences, you should acknowledge them. Also, suppliers, some suppliers, they may donate materials. For example, a seed company give you seed, or a herbicide company, you should acknowledge them. It's very important. Supplementary material is not for all journals, and especially for not for conventional journals, but nowadays it's getting very common, especially with the open access journals. Here you don't give not primary data, because primary data you already give in your paper, in your result section. So here we give less relevant data, or sometimes raw data you have to give in some journals. Also, if there are pictures just to show or the evidence of that you did this type of trial, so you can submit that one. It will not appear in your paper, but if someone asks for more information, it will be there. Okay, that was my last slide. This one about take-home messages. I hope you can go back again and try to understand what I meant by different sections. But just in one slide, keep your message clear. Don't use very complicated language. Be honest. That's very important in research. I always emphasize to my students, be honest. That's very important. And it's disappointing sometimes to see that researchers are not that honest. State your problem clearly. What was your problem? And that's especially in your abstract, but in detail in your introduction. Clear methodology, so that people, and especially young people will come, they will follow your methodology, and they can repeat those type of trials or follow-up trials. Don't overstate your findings. Just be simple. Implications, very important. What are the implications of your results? Its importance. Make it enjoyable to read. And I feel, for example, it should read like a story. And I always mention, even for PowerPoint presentation, a video worth of 10 pictures, a picture worth of 10 slides. The same here, a picture worth of thousands of words. So people can see easily if you can make a picture or a diagram which explain your results more clearly. That's always good. Follow again guidelines. All journals have different requirements. Don't worry if your paper is rejected. My paper is still rejected, okay, because of one or two other reasons. So don't worry if your paper rejected. Improve it. That's always good. Practice, 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 and it's possible that you may submit to a high impact factor journal. Okay. Now, I don't really want to extend this particular presentation too long, but next part I will cover, it will be shorter than this one, but I will cover some points about ethics and integrity, related to publication. Also authorship. That's what now some journals are questioning, do's and don't. Also, if you have heard, what are these impact factor, and in some countries they call it ratings. So what are those ones? We will explain. Also H index of an author, we'll explain the next time. But related to these ones, if you have got any idea, or if you want to hear more about journal publication, let me know. I will try to cover in the same presentation, and that will be maybe on the next weekend, in a week time. Also future ones, send me your ideas, what you want to hear. I already got these 3 important ones which I will cover in future videos. For example, what are the PhD scholarships availability, what are their criteria, opportunities. I will try to cover for Australia, but also for the US it's very different. Also some people asked me to, because our lab, we actually take lead in the weed ecology and biology area. So they say that you should cover some papers related to weeds. Also, just go to the field and pick a weed and talk about that particular weed. It's ecology, biology, and some people suggested that that will be easy to understand, easier than paper, than reading a paper. So I will try to cover that one, maybe around 5-10 minutes video on each individual weeds, and try to cover what are those what are the ecology and biology factors related to that weed. Also, I have contacted and I will contact researchers in some countries, take their interview for 5 to 10 minutes and from different universities, so that they can share their you know research as well as their interest, and it will be good for our young people. And I will try to have not only just a weed scientist but also general agronomist and maybe breeder also. Yeah, and this one is my last slide. We have launched new journals. It's Advances in Crop Science and Agronomy Research. I'm the editor-in-chief of this journal, and we are looking for members, editorial members from these journals, and it's all related. And I actually agreed to be the editor-in-chief that this journal should not have any publication fee for the first 2 years, and I hope we have a diverse panel, diverse editorial board, and after 2 years we can apply for its impact factor. So, and we will initiate that one. We have already started, but first publication will come, first issue in December or January. So I suggest people contact me if they want to submit their research and reviews, or also perspective articles. And also, if you have got 3-4 years of post PhD experience, if you have published some papers and you want to be on this journal, please let me know and detail.